IVM.
Good day, everybody. Good day, my love Ayushi.
Hello, all. Hello, Tash.
Welcome, everybody, back to Agla Station Adulthood. We apologize. We did not have an episode out last week. You know why?
Yes, we've just in general needed some time to introspect and reflect. And I mean, you know what? I also, on one hand, I feel like we owe an explanation, but on the other hand, I was getting very defensive last week in terms of being like, I don't think I owe anyone an explanation. I just am not in the headspace and I can't find my thread right now.
Yeah.
So I don't wish to do it. But I guess in a way, the adult decision, the adult thing is to say that you need that time and you would like to step back. So that's what we did.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into what we're going to talk about today also, because I think the past few months and the past couple of weeks have somewhere just touched upon this idea for a lot of young people who might have had to suddenly grow up or be jolted by something or the other. And we're here today to chat a bit about innocence and the age of innocence or the rage of innocence, as we like to say.
I think we've also found this amazing cop out in terms of making up titles that have age in them. We just put R in front and we're like, rage, kar do,
Yeah.
Nada, time to revolt. But yes, innocence. It half of it has come from the stuff that's been happening. I feel like we're alluding to a lot because now when you say stuff's been going on, I swear I want to ask which stuff, which one, like what are you specifically referring to? Because there's a lot.
I know, Aishi, but I honestly can't even point just to one thing and be like,
Absolutely.
this has been the worst one. Because whether we are looking at it at just at the pandemic का ongoing suffering, वो तो है ही. ऊपर से वो economic suffering, ऊपर से हमारा border पे जो भी चल रहा है, ऊपर से the sad demise of Sushant Singh Rajput, and the whole everything that's going on in America and the world right now. Also, so many things.
Yeah,
Where to start?
that's true.
Where to end?
And
Yeah.
this whole, as our grandparents and parents love to say, the world is churning. That's sort of made us question a couple of things. But anyway, let's get into the topic as such. Innocence. We wanted to talk about it in two ways. A, the retention of it and the loss of it.
Yeah.
I think let's do it this way. Let's end on the retention because that's a slightly
Yes.
more hopeful.
Yes.
I would like to end it on that because I feel that there is still hope and there are ways and there should be a dialogue and conversation around it. So we can do that.
Absolutely.
But we in terms of losing your innocence and wising up to the fact that people aren't entirely innocent or the world isn't just black and white. I think the majority of us function in the gray. That entire conversation is something that is worth having because, and here's my adulthood connection to it, is that actually is a huge part of being an adult.
Absolutely. It is the loss of innocence is a rite of passage almost. It's a coming of age thing.
Yeah. It's like metaphorically getting your adulthood period. Like you are now adult.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what even the internet says is just that it's an experience that in a person's life that leads to a greater awareness of evil, pain, or suffering in the world around them.
Yes. And that doesn't only mean like the world, like globally, but just it also means your world, the world around you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that can be from as I say small, it's not a small thing, but what I mean is it can be as small as thing as just kind of losing a little bit of faith in, say, role models or established institutions and figures, to as big as seeing like scandals or like death and war and larger, global level problems like that. So
yeah,
losing your, and of course there's I mean, I think we didn't even discuss this earlier, but it's coming to me now, is the traumatic part of it is that there are so many people who have gone through specific traumatic events, and that's what's caused them to lose their innocence at a young age.
Yeah.
And to be very fair, Tash, I don't even want to get into that because I don't think I'm quite prepared or qualified to talk about those kind of things. I'm talking about like,
Yeah.
people who've gone through severe, like, even if it's
Of
a
course.
sexual encounter or something like that, that's traumatic. That's a loss of innocence for a lot of
Absolutely.
people and
Absolutely.
children.
Absolutely.
So while that exists and we know that, I don't really want to get into that because I don't feel comfortable speaking about it right now. But
Yeah.
we're talking about even things like death of loved ones or
Yeah.
loss of a relationship, loss of a friendship, understanding that a relationship between two people has many different layers. That in itself is growing up and learning about the shift from like innocence to awareness. Let's say the opposite of innocence is awareness. Suppose that's a healthy way of framing that spectrum. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think when you're growing up, you understand friendship. Like, take something as basic as friendship to be that when you go to school, these are the people that you're friends with. This is who you eat and play with and learn with. And it's very, it's one dimensional, right? Because there's not anything extra attached to it.
Yeah.
As you grow up and you make more informed decisions, not only about your own personality, but about other people and other friendships, I think
Mm.
those layers get added. Those dimensions keep getting added to that relationship. Where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is my friend's personality. Like, she likes to do this. I like to do this. There are differences. And that's when you might see the first start of a conflict, or you might see a
Yeah.
moral dispute where you're like, but I don't believe in this. Like, I don't think that's the right way to do it. And that person doesn't, I mean, thinks the opposite. And that's where these ideas of right and wrong come up. And look, when you're a kid, right and wrong is so definite. It's so
Mm.
like stealing, robbing, this is all wrong. And
Yeah.
then being kind, being this is all right, you know? And
Yeah.
that's not to say that as a grown up, I think stealing is right. But I think as you grow up, you understand that 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 spectrum is a lot more. Just how everything in life has turned out to be a spectrum. Yay.
Like everything, yes. This life is a spectrum.
And this right and wrong evolves. And I think that's where you're no longer innocent because you start moving towards more of this awareness side of awareness of gray, of darkness, of black, of white, of knowing that
Yeah.
sometimes motive needs to be looked at more than the action.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right, like sometimes I think when we look at even if I look at a fight between like between you and I now, or between, say, I don't know, I mean, top of the head, Ash and I now, not that we're fighting,
Yeah.
bite my tongue. I just mean, I look at the way that it went down or the words we exchanged, but the first thing you look at is, but why did either of us do this in the first place?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's the difference between just being kind of like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about it, being like, oh, how can someone wrong me? I'm just a
Yeah.
perfect little innocent squirrel in the park. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's sort of the um, loss of innocence that I'm talking about. Um, but
You
yeah,
lose that bright-eyed, bushy-tailedness, essentially. And that's
yeah. But do you think that by saying that we lose it, it's sounding like we're kind of more jaded, or that you don't look at the world through hopeful or innocent eyes? I don't think it's entirely that, like I don't think that you give up on it entirely because
oh
you've
no,
become an
absolutely
adult.
not. No, I don't think you've given up on the idea. Or it's like I think even as adults who have seen a lot of trauma, adults who have been through severe things, whether in their childhood or in their adult life,
Yeah.
it's not to say that you completely lose that sense within you. I mean, it could go either way. So coming out of a traumatic experience could result in either end of the spectrum. Someone could go to the extreme of, oh, I'm hopeful, positive, gonna hold on to the innocence and purity of everything with everything I've got, or it could go in the opposite
And
direction.
it becomes someone's origin story of how they became
Yeah,
the Joker.
literally the prequel.
Yeah. Um,
Lol.
that's also,
But
by the way, another thing that you know, if we're going to get into how media does these things, is in a way we've also glorified people's origin stories. Like
Yeah.
we love to, and I don't just mean like Marvel and DC and the superhero world. I mean in general, like stories about like, oh, based on a true story. Like all of that of going back and saying like why someone is the way they are, why they made those decisions. That has helped us understand sometimes that
Yeah.
there are I mean, in some ways, it almost seems like we justify crime or we justify acting out and lashing out and those things. I'm not saying that that's every case, but in a way it's showed us that someone who has, say, a mental illness or some sort of vendetta or some, it's not just because everyone was born that way or everyone was, you know, from the start channeled and designed and programmed to be this way. There are things in
Yeah.
everyone's life that turns them into the person they become.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think, like we said, this loss of innocence can go 2 or 3 ways. And there is a
Absolutely.
worst case scenario. That's fact. There is a worst case
Yeah.
scenario in this. And I think being an adult is accepting that and being wary of that. Like you have to catch yourself and be like, that's dark. It's a dark thing to think.
Yeah.
You need to like walk yourself back from it.
But you what like this dark thing that you like
Yes.
even as an adult, like
You
growing
brought it up.
up,
You brought it up. Yeah.
I brought it up. I brought it up because actually it's happened to me also. Like I always prided myself in the fact that oh, I'm a happy-go-lucky, kind, jolly person. I was always like, हाँ मैं तो बड़ी jolly हूँ. Uh, ठीक है, I had heard some people during school. We all got into those little gang wars, if you will, in school.
She's talking about me.
Um,
She's literally talking about me.
Aishi and I had big fights in school. We used to like send each other like
Okay,
very
no, well,
long,
let's
long
not get into this.
messages.
But yeah,
Anyway, that's not important.
yeah.
So we used to have a lot of fights, and I've hurt people in school and all of that. But still, at the end of it, overall, by
Jolly.
our college, we are very jolly, good, happy children, happy, happy, happy. Cut to adult life. I was doing this TV show, and then I got into my first relationship, and then into my second relationship, and I saw sides of me coming out which I never knew existed. And
Right.
I was like, am I this person? Can I actually be this mean or can I be this savage? Then I was like, yeah, I guess I can. Shit. So all the small, small bad things that maybe I did in school of getting into like fights and maybe being mean to someone, then I could go back to that and be like, yeah, I guess I knew it all along that I had this dark side, but I had somewhere suppressed it, thinking, no, there are so many more happy memories and so much more good I can
Right.
focus on, that was fine. It's okay. It happened. Let it go. I won't let it happen again. But when you are in the situation of, or if the circumstances as an adult present itself to you in a way where somewhere you feel like you have no option, or if you're dealing with, and I was dealing with severe emotional stress and a little bit of
Professional stress as
trauma,
well. Yeah.
professional stress. Yeah, so it was all various factors of life which were really, really cracking me down on me, I would say. And I think that was one of the that those years, especially 2017 and 18,
Mm-hmm.
I saw a lot of my inner darkness or whatever.
Right.
And I still, I'm not gonna cry, but I still want to like go back to the time when I was 22, because I feel like whatever happened after 23, I can never go back to the person I was, even though that day I was just sitting. And that's actually how I thought of this whole like, we need to talk about this topic.
Right.
Okay, I'll get into that origin story now. How I was like, we need to discuss innocence.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just saying how origin story has become a thing.
Has become a thing now. Yeah, I love it. So I was on social media the other day, lol, and a friend of mine had posted something about innocence and being like, when did we grow up so fast that we lost the whatever naive, uh, doe-eyed thing?
Yeah.
And when she mentioned it, I read it, and just a few days before, I was having a very emotional time. So I'll tell our listeners, I'm a little stressed right now. My parents are having some stress at work, and not to mention they are both COVID positive currently. So just lots going on. So I was fully sitting on the pot and crying.
Oh dear.
And
That's
like,
by the way, that's a deep dark moment in life. You know, when that's also happening, you're like, this is a cosmic shit.
That's a whole mood, really. And unfortunately or fortunately, my pot has like the mirror is right in front of it,
Oh
no?
no,
So even worse, I'm
yeah,
crying, 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 and I'm like, no, no, I'm still the same person I was. And I'm telling myself, no, you're still the same, Natasha, you have it in you. Because I feel I've lost some funniness, I've lost some humor, I've lost some kind of joie de vivre, if you could, if you want to call it that. Is that the right word?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was, I so badly wanted to just go back to that brain setting, to have that brain and that mindset. Ki nahi sab changa si, actually, not in the shitty sense.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's how this topic was kind of born. Um, yeah,
But
I've
I think you're. Have I cut you off, or you have?
not at all. No, I was going to go back to the darkness, but I've talked enough about
No,
it, I
but
think.
I was going to do the same thing and say, pull it back to what you said in the beginning, which is about this darkness. Now, we've always joked, I
Yeah,
think, that you and I, and even with our friends, sometimes we've been like, ooh, there's a little bit of darkness in me. And
yeah,
you catch yourself catching it when you least expect it. Or sometimes, like you said, when you're an adult and you're faced with a decision and you suddenly realize that I think I do have it in me to be this ruthless. Or I do have it in me
yeah, which is scary.
to cut someone or say some words. And I think when you're a child, like you said, you say some things and then you're like, but I was a kid, and I know better and it's fine because it all worked out. I'm still happy and I made my apologies for it then. So it's okay.
Yeah,
But now as an adult, not only do you catch yourself having those thoughts, but you're like, oh, look, I'm apparently capable of still having that in me. I thought I outgrew it I outgrew it after being 17 and 18. And
yeah.
I mean, I've talked about it before. I think I had a lot of meanness in me as a kid as well sometimes, and it came out in different shapes and forms. And then I suffered like an academic setback. And I always thought, and the way I rationalized it was like, this is karma. Like, this is because I
Hmm.
was this way that life is showing me this and giving me this lesson. So, what I have to do
Yeah,
is hold on to the good and pure and the innocent part of myself and focus on that and work on it. But now I think when as you grow up and you look at your life and you're like, oh, I think what it was is that I had it in me all along. I just maybe got good at suppressing that dark side. But now with stress and emotional stress and financial and professional, you look at your life and you're like, God, when I'm under pressure, I'm okay to choose the less innocent response.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm okay with being that person that's like, ugh, that's harsh. Ugh,
yeah,
that's a lot. I know that if I looked at myself through a TV show or a movie, I'd be like, "Oh, that's a dark decision you've taken." And I know that it sounds like I'm like to my listeners, it might be sounding right now like I'm some
what
villain,
is Aishi up
yeah, like I'm some nighttime
to?
villain. But no, it's
ऐसा
not.
कुछ नहीं है, but
It's more like even
yeah,
responding to a colleague or to a subordinate or somebody who's, in your friend, and when your friend asks you to do something, and sometimes you're like, you know what, I just don't want to fucking do this. It's not about the friend.
yeah,
I just don't want to do this. And I know that that's not the nice thing to do. I know that that's not the right decision to take because quite frankly, it wouldn't take a lot for me to do it, but I'm I'm wising up to other things. You know what happens is sometimes when a friend asks me to do something, first I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'd do it. But I swear this darkness that I talk about is that thing within you that's like, but when was the last time this friend did anything for you? When was the last time
yeah,
that friend was there for you? And that
yeah,
devil that sits on your shoulder is making you question the relationship and is also making you question this idea of giving and taking and equality. And I sometimes wonder whether that devil is actually looking out for me or whether he's actually the devil or she's actually the devil. Maybe sometimes it is important to let that person, that inner
to
voice,
say
and talk to you and be
no,
like, hey,
yeah.
look, I also think that you're being too bushy-eyed and bright-tailed. Sorry. Yeah, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Sorry. Right now, by doing all of these things for your friends, because look, right now you don't have the time, your plate is very full right now. Learn to say no, learn
Yeah,
to prioritize. And sometimes when we say learn to prioritize, I think, by the way, guys, that's the adult way of telling each other you need to learn to say fuck off to some things.
yeah.
I think we say you need to learn to prioritize, but that the message at the end of the day is that some things aren't worth it. So put that at the bottom.
Yeah.
And this all again connects to innocence, because when you're younger, I think, or a little bit more innocent or naive, you kind of look at a relationship very sweetly. You're like, no, but my friend is asking me, I should do it. No, they are my best friend. I love her.
Yeah.
You can still love her. She can still be your best friend, but maybe there is some things to analyze and be like, I don't think I need to do this for this person right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on that note of talking about darkness, though we've given very light examples of this darkness, of course, I think sometimes it's very malicious and sometimes it truly
I
has
mean,
a
it can
weird,
come out.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been physically violent without ever thinking I could be someone who could be violent. When I was 25, I suddenly have raised my hand on someone and I was like, this is not okay. So,
I've like lashed out at, sometimes I think the person who deals with it the worst, I will admit, because she don't listen to this podcast, is my mother, is sometimes I've realized I'm capable of saying things that I didn't know I had in me. I didn't know that I could be so nasty.
yeah, yeah,
And that
same.
scares me. I'm always worried when sometimes when, pushed into a corner or backed into a corner and you're fighting and you're arguing, because you know me, my temper is one of those things where it'll maybe come up, but then immediately it goes away because I'm no longer interested in it. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
not going to let this
Who
have,
has the bandwidth?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let it have control over me. Like, I'm more programmed in that way. Like, I'm not going to let anything have control over me. Anger is one of those things. So I can't let it go too far. So I'm always like eager to make up. And then sometimes the person doesn't want to make up. And I realize it's because what I said in that flippant moment was hurtful. It was malicious. It was intended to provoke and hurt. And I'm scared sometimes, Tash, because I'm like, I didn't know I had it in me to be that person, to say those things.
Yeah. No, but actually, like you say that, and I've been in situations like that also with my partner Rajiv, where you're just having these nasty fights.
Yeah.
And I'm saying horrible things. And while it's happening, I know full well that I am being horrible by saying this. But and that's what is that darkness. So the innocence in you, even while you're saying them, knows that, okay,
Yeah.
you cannot be
Yeah.
saying shit like this. But that darkness at that point in time is so heavy. It's almost like, nah, keep going, keep going, keep going. So it is really that angel and devil sitting on either shoulder. And
True though. Those I think that's a great parable for this episode in general.
yeah,
Disney version of putting good and evil on your shoulder. It exists. I think it's very
yeah.
real. And while it might seem juvenile as a description, it's not. I think the adulthood problem is that every day or every problem is actually a fight between those two.
Absolutely. And then you, as the adult, has to always try to choose the right thing, but it's so hard to choose the right thing because,
Okay, let's take a break on this
yeah.
because I have some
Yeah.
other thoughts on this angel devil thing on the side. Let's come back.
Okay, nice.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. We appreciate their support. It's been a fantastic week on the IVM network. I hope that you've been checking stuff out, but some of the highlights that you definitely should check out. Ashish Vidyarthi, host of Begin the Journey, was on Cyrus Says. They had a really fun conversation. I think you'll enjoy that. Uncle Please Sid did an episode around development, which was really, really fun. On Edges and Sledges, we had Adam Holyoke, former England captain. While those guys are killing it, one cricketer after the other. Definitely do check out Advertising is Dead. We talk about esports with some really guys who really know that space. Smile India, absolutely right. These guys are killing it as well. So is Pawan at Pragati. Don't forget the original things. Again, one of my favorite shows. You must check that out. It's just been a really fun week, folks. I hope that you enjoy it. And with that, let's get you back to your show.
Welcome back, Ayushi. आप darkness और light की बात कर रहे थे?
Just a quick detour. Actually, we can come back to it. I'll write it down. We'll come back to it. Light and dark. I was talking about this angel devil thing on your shoulder.
Yes.
And like you said, adulthood is about choosing between those two things. And if you were to truly decide that you have a red and a white version of yourselves on both your shoulders when you make a decision, and you as a head in the middle is the one that's supposed to say that, okay, I'm going to take 50% of this dude, 50% of this girl and put it together. Or let's in this situation do a little more good than bad. that decision-making process, by the way, it's okay if you give in to that quote-unquote devil side of yours. Because like I was saying earlier, sometimes that devil side of you is looking out for you.
Absolutely.
And, like you said, that voice when you're fighting and you're saying those things, and that voice that's telling you, you know what, just lay into him, just keep going, let it out, let it out. Sometimes that is that voice of being like, you are thinking these things, you need to get it out. This is your your catharsis. This is what
Yeah,
you
because
are
then,
actually, this is what you're craving to do. Your body and your mind is screaming to get it out.
yeah,
And I know, I know this full well when I say that some things that we say can't be taken back, and that's so fucking dangerous as a concept. But sometimes that devil is looking out for you, because in this thing of innocence and this age of innocence and us holding on to some juvenile naivete in our life, like, I know that I've stepped into mistakes because I've been like, oh no, that couldn't possibly be his meaning. Like, he couldn't possibly think that that's an okay thing to say, right? Like, there's no way. That's a mistake. For sure. That person doesn't mean it. No, no, no. Unfortunately, like, the reality of the situation is that darkness exists in the world. Like, it does.
yeah,
So I think the true adult, like, level up, like getting to the next level of adulthood, is kind of understanding how much of the devil to listen to, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm okay being a little less naive and a little less innocent than I was. I know that at the beginning of the episode, even when we were talking about this yesterday, I was like, oh my God, when did we stop being so innocent? But I'm okay, because I know that there's a lot of people that I've cut out, a lot of things that I've cut out of my life because it wasn't good for me. It wasn't.
The loss of innocence somewhere also means the entry of good reason and a balanced approach to life, I
Oh
would
my
say.
God, that's exactly it. You said it much better in one sentence. Okay, listeners, let's
Yeah,
focus on that one. It's the entry of awareness, and it's the entry of a balanced worldview, and understanding that dimensionally it's not just like black and white. There are
yeah,
layers to life. But yeah, that's kind of, I like that thing of devil and angel, or whatever you call it, on your shoulder, kind of a thing. I think that
yeah.
that happens. That does happen to me at work, for sure.
But actually, now that we've talked so much about the angel and devil thing, then I've had a realization right now that I need to listen to both sides before saying anything. I too sometimes don't even listen to angel. I'm like, yeah, cool, devil, let's go, let's go, let's go. You know. So
Dude,
I think it's important to just pause and listen to both sides
oh
and then
my
speak.
God. Truly, I think we're both turning into our parents, or into parents in general, is just of this whole like think before you speak. Oh my
Oh
good
my
Lord,
God, it's so
guys.
key. It's so key. And I don't, Ayushi. I just go in guns blazing, no filter. And it's so bad for me. I've gotten into trouble so many times. And honestly, oh my God, I don't know if I should talk about this.
But she was right. I'm gonna go hug her. We're fighting right now. And it's
Oh,
100% because I didn't think before I spoke. But it's okay. It's okay. I'll.
we live and we learn every day. What else?
I mean, I feel like at this point I should have learned this lesson like 892 times just in lockdown. But
Yeah.
um, this is that whole adulthood thing, right? That you need to think before you speak. And again, it sounds like we're moving away from innocence as a topic, but we're not, because I think this is what it is, right? When you're innocent, you don't think, because you don't have to think before you speak. Every single thought you say is literally like, because your understanding of life is so simple. You're a simpleton.
And
You're a village
absolutely.
idiot. Remember that.
Yeah. And 100% innocence can only exist in 100% safe space, I feel.
And life isn't 100% safe space.
No, the world is not a safe space.
Like, we can say on our social media and in our chats or whatever, this is a safe space, feel free. But those are far and few between. Life in general, the world, social media, it's not a safe
Few
space.
and far between.
Few and far.
I don't know. I think it's few and far between, but who knows?
You could be right. I have been known to have the occasional verbal fumble. So yeah, but also I think the idea of innocence, like you were talking about before, like we've been talking about it in this larger metaphorical sense and decision making sense and like adulthood sense, but unfortunately innocence also means a lot of other things.
Yeah, like in our culture. So, I mean, we can definitely touch upon what the connection or the correlation of innocence and a romantic relationship or a first sexual encounter can
Yeah,
like
because
be
the idea that innocence is virginity.
in India, which is like
But I don't think
not
it's
even in
just
India
out
actually,
there.
it's world over. Yeah,
A lot
sorry.
of places, whether you're in like what,
Even the Christian culture also
yeah, like
I
the
mean,
whole idea,
pushes that.
I mean, what is
Yeah.
Catholicism really thinks that like
Yeah.
Virgin Mary and all of that stuff, you know, everyone
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to replicate that. But the idea of innocence, whether it's in Bollywood, whether it's in our social relationships, whether it's in a relationship between two, I mean, in like in a romantic sense, like whether whatever the gender of that is, um, this innocence comes there as well. Like whether we are saying this in terms of like the sexual steps in life, right? That if you've
Yeah.
taken them before XYZ milestone of say marriage, it's like, oh, you are not
Hmm.
innocent. She is not very innocent, huh? Why? Because she
Hmm.
wears clothes
Hmm.
like this, because she goes out at
Hmm.
night, because she's had a string of like other relationships in her life. It's like, oh, she's not innocent.
Yeah.
That in those ways, I will proudly and very happily say I'm happy that I'm not an innocent person, because this world, I'm sorry, this is the darkness speaking, whatever, it doesn't reward innocence. Actually, it really doesn't.
Absolutely not. In fact, it is the worst.
And you can hold on to your thing being like, oh, I am so innocent because I've never done this and I've never done that. That's, you're not going to get a prize for that. You might think that you will. You might think that you will be rewarded for that and people will treat you better. No, they won't.
Yeah.
So don't.
Like looking back,
Yeah. No,
say,
no, you
finish
continue.
it.
No, no, you continue.
Like just looking back, so we are 27, I'm 27 and a half now. I lost my virginity when I was 22. And honestly, up until that point, I also believed that, oh no, because, I've told you this line, I've told
Mhm.
you guys, right? It's a gift for my husband, my mother had said, lol. So I always thought that there is some kind of innocence that I hold between my legs, which is going to go if I give it away. But honestly, that was like the least uninnocent thing I've done in my life, I feel. It
Yes.
never, because Touchwood had a positive sexual experience. It's always been positive. Touchwood, never any bad stuff went down. So that for me was the least uninnocent of it all. In fact, it was a very nice coming of age, and I never ever felt like it was a loss of innocence.
But
In fact, it gave me more maybe joy and an inner connection with myself. So I then started really feeling कि like ये तो innocence की बात कर रहे हैं, ये तो गलत है. It's not connected.
I mean, that's great that that's the way you change your perspective around it and your belief system around it. Like, I think that's, and it's lovely that you had a very positive way to flip it around, of course.
Yeah.
But I also feel like the problem is that we've put it in this sense, you know, we've put it in this
Yeah.
definition that this is innocence, and that automatically that one thing makes you no longer innocent or makes you no longer a child. Like you are now,
Which is,
you know, you're wary of the world and you're wary of,
yeah,
no, I, first of all, that's a lot of pressure that you're putting on one act. Let me just say, that's a lot
absolutely.
of pressure that you're putting on
Honestly,
that
'cause,
act.
for every time somebody is losing their virginity by choice and consent, there's like, hello, it's not like they're becoming like suddenly worldly wise and they know all the ways of the world and
Absolutely. It's not,
no.
and to anyone who's listening to this in, who is still innocent, to put it, listen, this isn't some earth shattering thing that's going to immediately give you, it's not the key to a world of answers. It's not.
No.
It's not automatically that you become an adult. It's not that you suddenly become more aware or that you suddenly become more capable of making evil or devious decisions. Like it's not. It's simply not.
Simply not. Yeah. Just that's it. I would like to just leave it
Yeah,
there, Ayushi.
it's,
Thank you.
that's it.
Yeah.
I did read some other stuff though about like the socialization and like the sort of racialization of black and white and good and evil.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know everything about it because I haven't read every single thing, but there's a lot of books in general I think that we've been reading about caste and class and color and all of that right now, given the way things are going.
Yeah.
We've also always seen, and I know people are going to think that I'm reading too much into it because I myself think that this is reading too much into it, but there are people who have studied this and that's why they have sort of posited it, is that black and white again is seen as good and as bad
Good
and
and evil.
good, you know?
Yeah.
Black and darkness and the colors and the spectrum on that side are just automatically evil and bad and to be like there's mistrust and there is deviousness and all of that stuff, whereas anything that is white and pure and innocent and devoid of marks and not and unscarred and clean, right,
Because
clean.
these are the conditioned visual semantics that have been cemented by the generations thus far.
Exactly. And so this idea of black and white, not only has it colored our ideas of what is good and bad, but it's also colored, and I'm using the word colored like as almost like a pun, is that it's colored our idea of people also. And that is something to question, right? Like
absolutely.
This whole like dark skin versus light and like why she got to be black though? Like I don't know, but like why you got to say black car instead of white? Like these things of questioning why that you put those colors and why did you associate it in these ways? I think while we can joke and say that, look, it's not that deep and you're really over reading into this and you're over analyzing, and I don't think like that. I've never associated that way. I love black. Like I wear white. And I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't get stuck on these two words, but there is some truth to the way we've been socialized into also thinking that certain things are good and bad.
Yes.
And that just fundamentally, there is no way you can change that. That only if you act this way are you good, and only if you act this way you are bad.
For which it's very important to start questioning the things that we've been conditioned and socialized to believe. And because every belief system is a result of upbringing and society at large.
Absolutely. And today, children, when you see, like for me, when I see my young like nieces and nephews growing up, like because I don't have kids and that's only exposure I have to like young minds being molded or whatever, or even kids in school, like a lot of our siblings have, a lot of our friends have younger siblings. You see them growing up and you're like, I hope that your idea of right and wrong, while morally on the basics stays solid, the rest of it, you have more fluidity than I did.
Yeah.
Like we were so programmed because, Tash and I went to a very, very strict disciplinarian school. And I was talking to Serena actually about this and like how we've been so unable to look outside of a cathedral and outside of this cathedral view of what's right and wrong. Like I love my school, don't get me wrong, but there were so many things that were hammered into us that if you're not like this, you're not good. You're not good enough. You're not pure. You're not an achiever. You're not going to amount to a good person, And if you do any of these other things, you're bad. You're written off.
Also because this particular school that we attended had a very colonial ideology and
that's
held on to
and those are those
problematic in itself already.
Yes, and that's why these conversations about light and dark and black and white and colonizer versus the colonies or whatever that idea is, that's all true. So when people talk about this and you think that you kind of brush it off being like, this is so extra, like you don't need to go into this so much. You do though, because as kids who grew up in, first of all, a colony, but also in a very, very modern city and who have so much international exposure, there is still so much I think that we carry within ourselves. No, but this is good and this is bad,
Yeah.
But it's not like that. And I think in terms of like wrapping up on that hopeful note, this is kind of what I want to say is that you can, I don't really know about innocence in terms of retaining it, not having it, etc. But this idea of good and evil, of what is inherently good and just basically bad, that needs to be questioned as well. Because it's coming from a place where we haven't questioned it in so many decades that we've built a system that has a lot of flaws in it. And I'm not an anarchist to say I want to pull down every institution and burn it to the ground, but I see why somebody might think that. I understand rage against innocence. And I understand that for too long we've sometimes pretended to be innocent and been like, oh, because I can't see that, it doesn't affect me.
Yeah, which is not innocence, that's ignorance. And inconsideration, I would say.
Exactly. And so don't put
the lack of compassion.
Yes. And that's another thing, right? You can't say that because I've never been racist or classist towards someone, I'm not part of the problem or the system. That's ignorant.
Yeah.
Innocence is knowing that you've never partaken in it, but awareness is knowing that it exists, and you need to do something to make sure that you never succumb to making decisions based on those systems in place.
Yeah.
And I know that we're trying to say a lot of things without directly saying them, but I think innocence is a very innocent word in itself.
Like wordplay at its max, wordception.
Yeah, because I think it pretends to be innocent, but there's a lot more
I absolutely agree with you. Because also now that we've grown up and seen the dark stuff, you see how performative innocence or or the innocent can be.
So of course, like a legal and system and the law exists to protect innocent people, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Like that is the law of the land world over. We should abide by that. But there are certain things to say that, look, innocence in itself is sometimes, like you said, it's performative. It's become a trope. So get aware. Don't say that I need to retain my innocence in life. No, I think you need to build awareness.
Yes. And with that, I would just say that going back to our time episode and the concept of horizontal and vertical time.
Yes, right. Good to remember.
Awareness is key in the long run, in the short run, in every run. Awareness is key. Whether it's about social issues, current affairs, or the cosmos at large, awareness is key. Consciousness, okay, that's there. But I think what we talk about when we say the good kind of innocence, or the moments of utter like purity, or that feeling actually of feeling, it's a feeling, I would say, more than a being, the state of being, it's a state of feeling. Those moments of innocence can still be found in adulthood also, in the vertical time. There'll be a vertical moment of innocence that can come in a hug, maybe from a friend or a lover, or in like it's something as simple as watching a baby video. Oh my god, I'm in now. I never thought I was one of those people who would be like, I want to watch baby videos.
No, it happens to all of us.
Animal
it's age,
videos,
by the way. It's totally aged.
It's age, okay. I love a good baby video now. That day you sent a video of a baby being shampooed. I am all in for that shit, because
I straight up said
everything. I want to be baby.
I'm looking to return to age of innocence. Like I was like, wipe everything. Give me a clean disc to work on.
Yeah.
But you're right. This episode isn't to tell you that you shouldn't embrace innocent moments or pure moments or moments of joy when you felt like it was untethered to anything bad or nasty. There are those moments that exist in my life. Like I'm so happy to have had so many of them where devoid of any sort of maliciousness, there was just pure joy.
Yes, that's it, I think. And that's the one of the few forms of innocence I think we can find in the adulthood.
And there's a lot to gain from them. There's a lot to learn from them, and to hold on to them is sometimes, in a pure, very human sense, it's just nice. It's just nice.
Yeah.
So I think we can wrap up on that note.
Absolutely. Bahut baatein ho gayi. Thank you so much, Ayushi. This has been lovely.
And I hope you guys like this episode. If you want to check out other shows, there are heaps of great shows on the IVM app or ivmpodcast.com. And you can also follow IVM Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear your thoughts or stories that you have about this topic or any experiences you want to talk to us about.
Yes, I know we've been
So
talking about it,
we're
but
building a community.
yeah,
Yeah.
in general, if any episode or any topic or anything that we've spoken about resonates with you and you want to say that this made you feel a certain way, good, bad, or nothing at all, like, let us know. We really do want to create a community out of this.
Yes. We're all together. That's the main thing, guys. We are alone but together.
Yeah. Oh God. Let's not even get into this because I will get very upset now because of lockdown. But yeah, we're in this together.
Please follow us also on our various social media platforms. I'm at RYTASH on Instagram and Ayushi. Aap bata dijiye.
I'm at Just Ayushi on Twitter and at AyushiA9 on Instagram. Catch you guys next week.
Okay. Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.
Look! Up in the internet! It's a meme! No! It's a cat video! No! It's the Geek Fruit Podcast!
That's right, we interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, The Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.